The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. Joining me today on the panel are Jack Barazini. Hey, Jack.
Hey, Dom.
And Thomas Ennerhout. Hey, Thomas.
Hey, Dom.
Folks, we have a great show for you today. We have another listener-requested topic. We got a request from a listener who wanted to know more about remote control apps. And we've talked a bit about remote control apps in the past on the show. They've come up as picks of the week, or they've kind of come in from the side as we're talking about other topics. But we wanted to talk about them specifically here as the main topic, and what a remote control app is, how we use it, when we'd want to use it, and the different options we might have. Thomas, you mentioned before before we started recording that you don't use a remote control app per se. When you want to get into your computer remotely, you do something else. What is it you do?
I use shell scripting. So I just go into an SSH session, and I have a listening port open on my computer, whichever computer I'm trying to log into. And because I'm a Linux user, I can just access things through the command line. And so if I need to quick copy something or to access some part of, especially like my Minecraft server for my kids,
yeah.
I just log in with a shell script and connect that way. So there's a lot of things to be concerned about there, because the typical shell port is one that everybody knows. So the first thing I did for security was just change the port that it's listening to for shell login. And I have a write-up on my blog about that, so I'll give you the link to that. And It's kind of how to manage the security issues, especially since I taught a bunch of middle schoolers how to do this so that they could log in remotely to their Minecraft server and manage it. And so I had to make it super duper secure, because not only was I worried about the people getting in that weren't supposed to be there, but I was worried about them getting in and doing things they weren't supposed to do.
Right. Well, yeah, and since that's middle schoolers, if you have, our listeners, you probably won't be able to do it, so just get the local middle schooler to help you. They'll know more about this.
Right.
But it is a bit of an advanced way of getting into remotely. I mean, I'm not even sure. Right. I know how to do it too, but that's not something I'd be super comfortable doing very much. It's more of an advanced way.
Well, and before we get too far too, I would recommend anybody who does do that, who's interested, I found a great Android app called Juice SSH that allows you to do shell scripting from your phone. And all the same safety protocols, can run all of the different signatures that you need to communicate securely, and it's free. So it's really easy to access. Really, it's free, and it's just really a simple app that does exactly what you want it to do.
There's an app for iOS that also does the same thing called Prompt from Panic Software, that also gives you an SSH client for shell script on your iOS device. So that's cool. Jack, I was going to ask you about, do you know about most of these remote control apps use a particular, we call it a protocol, or the same sort of base that it's called VNC. Do you know much about that? VNC?
I know a little bit about it. What I've primarily done when it comes to remoting into people's computers is using RDP. And then when I manage that in an office setting, that's no issue because everybody's on the same LAN. This past year, especially with everyone working remotely, we've been using a VPN, so that keeps everything secure. And then if anyone needs help, I can just RDP into their computer.
Okay, so RDP, VNC, those are just acronyms for
Remote Desktop Protocol.
Remote Desktop, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Virtual Local Area Network.
Yes. LAN is, yeah. So, and VPN, yeah, Virtual Private Network. So that's actually one good thing to mention is you can, if you have a fairly newer router, if you have an Eero, or we talked about some routers recently that have VPN built into it, and what that does is it creates a secure connection between two computers over the internet, essentially, right? That's basically.
There's a bit of a difference, and this is kind of a tangent, but if you're doing a VPN, like using your Eero or whatever, that's basically just going to mask where your IP address is coming from. When you're using a VPN in a corporate setting to connect back to the servers at your office or whatever, that's basically creating a virtual local area network.
Okay.
Where no matter where you are with your computer, it thinks it's in your office building.
Okay. Okay. So that is a prime difference. But for the purposes of most of our audience, they're going to be mainly using one of these commercial or generally available apps that are out there that kind of put a nice face on top of all the technicalities and the difficulties. And there are a lot of them are very similar. Mainly the differences are in price and in some of them have extra bells and whistles. Some of them are more intended for corporate environment than they are for, say, you at home with, trying to connect to your laptop, your desktop computer from your laptop somewhere else, or connect to, your mom's computer at her house to take care of it, which is
yeah. That's what I was going to say. That's the primary use case where we're probably going to see a lot of people want to know about these.
And in fact, this is when we talk about why would I want to do this, those are probably the two big ones. Like one, for often, like if I'm on vacation with my family, a lot of my work stuff is here. And if something goes wrong with, say, SQPN, I need to, access file. I need to access one of the podcast episodes or something on my computer, on my desk at home. I'll connect remotely and share I'll connect and remote control my Mac on my desk and drop the file into a place where I can access it from my laptop or mail it to myself or mail it to someone else or something along those lines. So that's one primary way of using it. And another is, as you said, helping someone who is not as savvy as you, perhaps, with their computer problems. As long as they have an internet connection and the computer turns on, those are pretty much the two basic things. Then you can get in and help them with it. So those are, I would think, the two big things.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of people have probably experienced it with calling for tech help, either from their job or from, a company that's offering, like HP support. I think they have their own sort of remote desk in. And it is the tech will tell you, hey, okay, you need to put this piece of software. You need to open up this piece of software. And then here's the number. And they give you like a 4 to 6 digit code. And it logs them in remotely, and then they start moving around magically on your screen from wherever they're sitting, in Massachusetts or India or wherever.
Well, in fact, we should probably say right here, don't let just anyone do this to your computer.
Yes.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Because they can install malware, they can steal passwords, install a keylogger that records your passwords. This is one of the big tricks that hackers and scammers do is they convince you that you should give them control. That's why you often see those pop-ups like there's something wrong with the computer, connect to tech support and they'll fix it for you. And it's not tech support, it's some jerk somewhere who wants to steal everything from you.
If you didn't call them and have to jump through 20 hoops and wait for half an hour,
yes.
Then you don't let them have control of your computer.
Exactly. That's exactly. There's actually a YouTube channel where there's this guy who he purposely seeks out these scammers, and he's set up a whole environment on his computer with like fake bank websites and all these fake stores for buying gift cards, and because that's one of the scams. They either empty your bank account or make you buy gift cards and give them to them. And he keeps these guys on the phone for hours. Like he had one guy for 7 hours on the phone. Plaudits to him, but yeah, don't let these guys scam you. But legitimate purposes, things you would want to do. So you want to maybe connect to another computer for tech support or remote support. You want to print something remotely. You want to you don't have a printer where your computer is at, but there's a printer connected to the other one. To remote access a server. The computer on your desk is connected to a server on the network. So you might have, like at home, you might have a network attached storage or that sort of thing to transfer files back and forth, that sort of thing. So let's talk about the different options. There's the free services that are built into the different operating systems. There's Quick Assist for Windows, which to use that, there's you have to have the person log in to Mike. So this is more of a tech support function. And what that does is that you have the person you're helping, they log into to a Microsoft account, and then there's a connection code that they share to you, the person who's trying to help them, and then you connect and control.
Yeah, I've used that one some, and I would not recommend it, to be honest, because I feel like the biggest use case for this is you're helping a family member or a friend who's not tech savvy, who's going to need help on their computer. And the one thing they're not going to know how to do is either have a Microsoft account or remember their password to log into their Microsoft account. Right. So I've never actually tried to use Team Assist where it's been, I've actually ended up being able to use it.
Another one that's free and built in is Screen Share. That's part of Apple Messages. So obviously the person, it's just for people who run Macs. It's not as like they don't have to log into an account, but they have to understand how to open messages on their Mac and allow you to share the screen. It's not very hard, but sometimes if you're in the position of having to help someone who doesn't know how to fix their own computer, it's often very hard to explain to them how to get where they need to be. But it's built in, it's free, and you can use it. Google Chrome has a built-in extension, a remote access extension. This one only works for other machines on the same account, so they have to be connected to the same Google account. So that's a problem. So it's really more about you connecting remotely to your own computer as opposed to doing tech support.
Right. But it's fantastic because it works over the web, and which I think is, you just log into a website basically and then have kind of an RDP placed up there for you.
Yes, and it's cross-platform, so Windows, Chrome OS, and Mac OS, it works across them. So that's a good solution. So those are basically the free ones. So let's talk about the not so free ones. Although this first one, it has a free level, and it's called TeamViewer. And I've used a number of these for over the years, and TeamViewer was one I used for quite a while.
That one's definitely my go-to for the situation of helping friends and family, because it's super easy to install. It doesn't cost anything if you're using it for personal purposes, which helping people is that. It just gives you a code. They put in the code. You can get on their computer, do whatever you need. And that's the one I've never had any issues with in terms of helping a non-tech savvy person. So that would definitely be my go-to for that use case.
Right. I agree. Yeah, when you install it, it sets up with that code right there on the screen for that they can share with you. They can text it to you or email it to you or whatever. But yeah, it is. It seems to be designed for that use case of helping that one person. And like you said, it's free for private, non-commercial use. If you were to be, they get a little hinky sometimes, a little bit about suspecting you of using it for not private, non-commercial use. I started to run up against it started to get a little pushy about. Are you sure you're being an individual? Yes, I own two computers and I have a computer at work and I'm trying to connect to it. So I ended up leaving it behind. But yeah, in general though, and it's cross-platform. That's another big benefit of that one.
Yeah, definitely.
Another big one is LogMeIn, and LogMeIn is a big company. They have a lot of different products. If you've ever used the GoToMeeting webinar, if you use LastPass, all that sort of stuff. And LogMeIn Pro is their remote access software. That also, I think I don't think they have a free tier. They have a free trial. So you can so if you needed to use something and for whatever reason TeamViewer wasn't the thing for you, you could use the free trial to do some remote. But that's not as good, because one of the things I should mention is if you're setting this up to do tech support for your mom remotely, say, I always say your mom because my mom is the one who I usually would be helping, but it could be your dad or could be your aunt or whatever, your uncle, could be your kid at college. But but the best thing is if you can install the software when you're sitting at their computer, get it installed, get it set up, get the code ahead of time, know what it is, save it, so you don't have to walk them through anything over the phone. That's if you can avoid that, that's the best thing. So this isn't as great of a deal, but what it is this is $30 a month. You get to access up to 2 computers on the LogMeIn. And it allows for multi-monitor display, which is can be, for me, that's useful. I've got multiple monitors. Not a lot of people, not everybody has a multiple monitor setup, so it's not as big a deal for most people.
And I think Log Me In is definitely more geared towards if you have your work computer set up in your office and you want to log into it when you're remotely. It's less of a tech support thing and more of a being able to get to your stuff wherever you are.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. And they're really big on corporate accounts and lots of people. Yeah. Another one is Splash Top. This is one I don't have experience with. I haven't used this one, but it is $5 a month for connecting 2 computers. They have a business level. It's $8.25 a month, and that gives you up to 10 computers. And you can also share your desktop via a web link, which is useful, especially if you want to demonstrate things to someone else.
That I think is probably the best seller for this one. That is just it's really easy to install too. It's really not not as easy as TeamViewer. TeamViewer, I think, is just the most easy drag and drop. You can do it over the phone. But if you have somebody that you know you're going to be working with a little more often, like that aunt that just got a computer and she is going to call you 20 times for help, you just get this installed on her machine and you can log in really easily.
Right. They do have, a different products, one where the person doesn't have to install anything, but that costs a lot more a month. So it's a little bit, it's like $17 a month, which if you find yourself supporting a lot of people, if you've become de facto tech support for people, or you're starting a small business, that might be the thing. Now, the
charging your rent.
That's right. You start, right. If you're getting paid to do it, then get a product that you pay for. So the one I use right now for myself, so I can access my computer remotely, is called Screens. And this is Mac and iOS software. This is not cross-platform at all. It's a little, it looks more expensive. It's $30 for the Mac software and another $20 for the iOS stuff if you want to access your computer from an iPad or an iPhone, which I've done. It's like accessing a 27-inch iMac on an iPhone is an experience trying to tap on things, but it can be done. I have done it. It seems expensive. That's like $50 all in. But then when you look at, well, of course, $50 and I'm done, as opposed to $5 or $10 a month. So that works. The math works a little better there. But it's really nice software. It tunnels through your router and any firewalls. It sets that up for you, and also it gives you some manual controls if you want to manually set ports and things like that. If you have the knowledge, and they have some articles that help you with that. But Screens, it's a really good experience. And one thing it does is they have another piece of free software called Screens Connect that registers your computer in their system so that you don't have to remember what your IP address is. That's one of the things. If you want to connect remotely, the remote software needs to know where to connect to. Where is that? What's the address of that computer? So this takes care of that. So it's pretty good software. And then another one, the last one I'm going to talk about is one that a lot of people talk about. It's called Jump Desktop. It's free on Windows, which is nice. It's $30 on Mac, or if you subscribe to SetApp, which I've talked about before, it's like it's Netflix for Mac apps, essentially. So it's you pay $1 amount a month, and you get access to every app in the service, which actually is saving me money because I do it. It's a former pick of the week, but this is in SetApp, so I get that for free. They also have iOS and Android apps as well. It does the same thing as the other ones. But I think, as you were saying, Jack, before, I think TeamViewer, if you're trying to help support other people, TeamViewer is probably the one I would recommend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's the most straightforward.
Are there pitfalls or pros and cons, things we need to think about for people?
I would say just if you're going to be using these apps, you should be doing this anyway with your computer, but make sure you're keeping things up to date because especially with the nature of these kinds of apps, it's a hole into your computer from the internet. And so if there's any sort of security bugs, you want to make sure you're staying on top of that so other people can't use that as a backdoor. Okay. Yes, that's true. That's true. One thing I would mention is sometimes when routers get updated or modems, so the modem is the piece of hardware that the cable company gives you to connect to the internet. Sometimes those get updated or restarted.
it can make things not work. It can break things a little bit, and it requires you to like basically kind of restart. So either restart the software, or you don't have to necessarily reinstall it, at least not on the Mac versions in my experience. But sometimes you need to like tell it to reset the connection and reconfigure the hole through the firewall that it makes, that sort of thing. So that's a pitfall that can sometimes bite you when you're trying to make it work. Any other things that we should be concerned about, pros and cons?
Make sure that the person on the other end either uninstalls the software, or that they know how to or that you set it up so that it properly shuts itself down when you're done helping them, because that can be another problem, that they aren't tech savvy enough to know that that does create a hole to the internet that is then accessible to pretty much anybody. And there's a few little things that you can do, and if you read the tech support for any of these, especially TeamViewer, it'll tell you how to make sure that things are set up properly before you leave that person's computer. Right,
yes, so that they're secure, and only you're the only one who can get in to help them with it. Yeah, that is very true. So I mean, I think that's a pretty decent overview of these different remote control apps. If there are specific questions that listeners have, I'd be happy to field those, and we can address those in a future episode. It's hard to make blanket statements about all of the apps, because they all have similar functions, but their specifics are somewhat different. But the state of these apps is that they're pretty good once you're connected, and as long as in most internet connections these days are pretty high speed, even on a phone, the connection. So there is a little bit of lag. You drag the mouse across the screen, and sometimes it follows a little slowly, but it gets there. And it's like being at your computer. So so if you have specific questions, though, let us know, and we'll try to address those. All right, let's move on. At first, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Secrets of Technology, including Dorian K, Matthew W, Sam R, KH, and Brendan. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest. Now's a great time to become a StarQuest patron, thanks to a generous gift from a StarQuest supporter when you start a new Patreon monthly pledge at sqpn.com/give. The first 3 months will be matched by an equal amount from our donor. So if you become a new patron at $10 a month, say, after 3 months, our donor will give $30 to StarQuest to support all our shows, including this one, and making your gift go even further. So if you've been thinking of becoming a StarQuest patron, now is a great time. So visit sqpn.com/give today. All right, let's talk about some headlines. Another big tech story this week, which usually in most years is a really big tech story, which is that this was the week of CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, which brings a couple 100,000 people to the convention centers out there, where all the big tech companies from around the world gather to show off their latest and greatest, and then small tech companies come and show really weird stuff and all that sort of things. And then we watch all the coverage and look at all the interesting trends and that sort of stuff. Well, this year, obviously, there was no in-person show. And so there was a certain sort of virtual CES. The companies got to have presentations and show off their stuff virtually, in video presentations, and lots of press releases got sent out and that sort of thing. Sort of as a overview, it's interesting that a lot of the tech reporters were saying one of the things that's missing, like we got the usual big company discussions, the big company press releases, but what we really missed was those little out of the way corners of these big convention halls where you see that really interesting little product that nobody else, it can't otherwise cut through the noise the blizzard of press releases. And so that seemed to be missing a bit this year. I don't know if you guys paid any attention to CES, but that seemed to be missing.
Yeah, you didn't have the feel of being able to walk the floor. And even with the interesting thing about CES is you would think, okay, well, it just translates to online, right? But the thing about CES is if you followed the right people, they would walk the floor with you. And so they would take the camera around and walk the floor with you and talk about all the little things that they were seeing. And so you felt like you were involved. You felt I mean, I've never gone. I would love to, but I've never gone. And but you felt like you were there. And this year, there wasn't that. Even if those things were happening, it wasn't obvious how to get to them. And you needed to know really where you were going to go and check out these secondary things.
It seems like the biggest trend is laptops are kind of, for the first time in the past like 7 to 8 years, there's a lot of advancement going on in laptop technology. And I think a lot of that has to do with everyone working remotely now. People actually want computers again as opposed to just iPads.
Mm-hmm. Right. There's another headline we had that for later, which is laptops and desktops are seeing huge sales are huge in 2020 because of all the people who started work from home, needed a computer at home. They all they had was a desktop computer or an old laptop, and they all wanted a new laptop. And companies were like, okay, let's do it. And so there's these huge shortages, and so a lot of these companies are rolling out new models. And Intel's got some new, and I think that was one of the big trends they talked about at CES this year was Intel and the other CPU manufacturers rolling out new CPUs, new GPUs, new laptop technology. That's all out there, and all of that. Plus, there was several other trends related to the lockdown, the 2020 quarantine, etc. But that seemed to be a big one. I agree. Yeah, there was so there was a lot of health related tech, apparently, stuff. So stuff directly related to fighting the COVID itself. What's the Razer, which I thought this was interesting. Razer is known for making gaming oriented computers, but they came out with a smart face mask that is an N95 grade mask that has UV sterilization capability, voice projection, so that it has like speakers on the outside and a microphone on the inside, so that your voice could be heard more clearly, I guess. Or if you wanted to be Bane or Darth Vader, maybe you could do that.
There's got to be a voice manipulation part here, yeah.
And multicolored LED lights, of course, because it's Razer, right?
Well, obviously.
So that's like that sort of stuff. So those masks, smart thermometers. I saw mention of a lot of remote and telemedicine. That was a big trend in 2020. Was going to your doctor, going to various appointments remotely, and people noticed the deficiencies in the current system for that. And so I think some of these companies are coming out with things. Anything along in the lines of the health related stuff that you think is a trend that we need to look out for?
I think the biggest thing is like you're talking about with the telehealth. I think that's going to be where there's going to be the most improvement, because I think people have realized now that we've been going through this, if you don't need to go into the doctor's office, it's probably a good idea not to physically be there so you don't catch something while you're there.
Right. I agree.
But it's also really important to still be engaged with your doctor. And I think this splits that middle. That's really good. That keeps people from going to the office, but it also allows them the opportunity to talk with a doctor. And there's a space there that we haven't invested in enough. And I think it's really good to see that coming to the forefront.
Yeah, definitely.
My kids, several of my kids, they get anxiety about going to the doctor. They don't it's a strange environment. You get poked and prodded, but they have some health issues that don't require to be physically present to be examined in person all the time. The follow-ups can be done remotely, and they can do it remotely from the couch where they're at home in a friendly, safe environment. I think there's something to be said for that. And I hope we do continue to develop that technology, but keep letting people do this sort of remote thing.
Well, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to the doctor and sat in the waiting room for 40 minutes for a 10-minute conversation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Walk in, talk to the doctor, he prescribes something, and walk out, and it's like, I could have done this over the phone. Why is that not an option?
Not including the time to drive to the doctor's office and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. Yes. So that should be a big trend. What about the stuff about working from home? That's now the thing, or school from home. There seemed to be it felt like a lot of tech companies, and this isn't just CES, but CES sort of encapsulates the trend, but a lot of companies are starting to notice, like, we could maybe start, like, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to keep working from home, so we should design some of our stuff for home, like desk chairs that you would normally only get at the office. Maybe these are ones you could have at home and that sort of stuff.
I'm shopping for some of those right now because the one I have is just, it's killing my back.
Yeah, mine is starting to fall apart. I was actually, just before we started recording, I was trying to fix the headrest. I might be in the market, but so that, and monitors. You think that's monitors and webcams? I think those are probably going to be two of the big areas.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything big in the webcams, though. I was really surprised. I think that I think the webcam companies were kind of caught off guard, and now they just haven't been able to catch up with the demand to even be able to invest in research for forward thinking.
Yeah, I think a big market that doesn't seem to have really been tapped yet is the tech support for these things. That kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, but you have all this technology that's coming out, and you're going to have a bunch of people who are not really going to know what to do with it or how to set it up optimally for their environment. So you can buy a really nice monitor and a really nice webcam and not really know what to do with it. So I think that is something that we're probably going to see soon, is that kind of service. Because,
people are also not necessarily comfortable with people coming into their home to set it up for them too. Like in the office, you just have the IT department set it up for you, but not at home. Speaking of the webcam stuff, Dell has showed off a new laptop that has a built-in automated physical shutter that opens and shuts based on whether you're actually there's some functionality about closing when you do, like, automatically physically covering the shutter at times when you don't want to be on camera, which
that's kind of cool.
I actually just bought a laptop for my wife. It's like a cheap Lenovo, and it has a physical shutter that you slide over.
Well, given the oopsies that we saw at the beginning of the pandemic, especially from people not realizing they were on camera, like going to the bathroom and stuff like that, this is a no-brainer. I think the idea of having at least even if it's a manual physical shutter, never mind an automatic one. I mean, just even a manual physical shutter is, I think, de rigueur.
I would say if you're worried about security, a manual physical shutter is probably the best way to go because it can't open itself.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I have an Echo Show on my desk, and it has a camera on it, and it has a physical shutter that you flip it to the side, and it's never been opened. I have no desire.
Closed.
Yeah, I have no desire to open that thing. And I mean, I have aftermarket ones I've put on all my computers, on my kids' computers, all that sort of stuff. But it is nice. Apple says that the way that their webcams are engineered in their laptops and in their desktop too, the iMac, the camera cannot be on without the green light also being on next to it. So there's no way for the camera to be active, just in a basic electronic sense. My guessing is power is running through the LED or something.
I actually just watched a really interesting video from the YouTube channel Technology Connections earlier today where he talks about that exact thing. I'll send you the link to it if you want to put it in the show notes.
Oh, yeah. Because, I love Technology Connections. We talked about that channel as a pick of the week a few weeks ago. And, you can, somewhat rest assured. But I can imagine there's more that's coming. Another big trend was, well, it's hard to say it's a trend. Every year at CES, TVs are big.
Right.
Like, it's just that's the primary consumer electronic that most people have, right? But the new thing is they're talking about OLED. So, it's not really new, but big OLED screens. Like most OLEDs have been limited to phone size, but now we're talking getting the cost of the very big, like 55 and 60-inch screens in OLED down, that people can actually afford them if you're not a football player or, or a celebrity. So, and the benefit, one of the big benefits is that, the colors are really true and good. Black is ultimate black and that sort of thing. So
right.
That came up. Any other trends that you guys saw that might be interesting to mention here?
Everything seemed pretty tame, honestly.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, no like innovative, the side scrolling phones that have like the screen that goes off the edge or that can fold up or,
yeah. There was one
huge.
phone. There was one phone that rolled up like a scroll.
Right.
But it was apparently like mechanical, so that like you didn't just pull it open. You had to press a button and it slowly unrolled. Like, I'm going to get that call. I'm going to get that call. Oh, they hung up. So, yeah. Although the one thing I did see that wasn't a computer or phone or anything like that I really want is they call it the Keurig for ice cream. And it's basically you put a pod in this machine and it dispenses, as I guess, soft serve or something like that. I'm like, I totally want one of those. Yeah.
That's man,
awesome.
I have a 3-ingredient chocolate ice cream that I make at home. It's so good. Soft serve. It's not. I will never use anything else. Just 3 ingredients. Too. It's beautiful.
Milk, chocolate, and sugar.
Pretty much.
Nice.
Although we've this is off topic, but for my daughter who until recently couldn't drink milk, her ice cream of choice, quote unquote, was frozen old bananas, like bananas that had gone turned brown, too brown, frozen, then put in a blender with some chocolate syrup or just chocolate powder, cocoa powder, and some sugar. Although I don't even know if it needed sugar. Blend it up, and then it's taste indistinguishable. It doesn't taste like banana, indistinguishable from chocolate ice cream. And if you're lactose intolerant, yeah. So, all right. So that's
okay. I gotta give my real 3 ingredients are whipping cream, evaporated condensed milk, so the sweetened condensed milk, and chocolate. That's how I do it.
Nice.
It's absolutely beautiful. You can look the recipe up on YouTube, but it's 3-ingredient ice cream. It is amazing stuff. Really.
I'll have to check it out. All right, so let's. So that was CES 2021. Quiet. The funny thing is all these tech reporters who get to go every year. Oh, I have to go to Las Vegas and I have to walk around. they would always complain. They would always get sick on the way home. Because everyone passing around these diseases. It was interesting to see how many of them actually this year going. Well, I kind of miss it. Like, yeah.
Of course you miss it.
You get the all expenses paid junket to Vegas. Of course you miss it. So. All right, so let's talk about other news. Apple had a big announcement last week. They were teasing it and then announced it. And I love it. It's like Apple is going to make a non-technology, non-product announcement. That's what it was. Non-product announcement coming this week. And everyone's like, ooh, what is it? And you have the most outlandish theories. Things like they're going to turn their stores into vaccination centers. Like, why? They have a lot of stores, but not that many. Like Walmart would be a better, anyway.
Right.
So what it is they last summer, in the midst of all the stuff that was going on surrounding racial equality and injustice, they announced that they were going to spend $100 million on a racial equality and justice initiative. Now, a lot of times when big companies announce this sort of thing, it's like you never hear anything about it again. Who knows where the money goes? Well, they to their credit, I'll give them props for this. They've actually come up with what they're actually doing, and what they've done is it's got several different branches. One is that they're creating something called the Propel Center. It's described as a global innovation and learning hub for historically Black colleges and universities. So it's a resource for these colleges to provide students with additional opportunity to technology support, curriculum in the technology and computer areas, so that really to bring this to those colleges and let them make their computer science departments and other departments, frankly, where they talked about agricultural technologies, AI and machine learning, social justice, entertainment arts, app development, augmented reality, design and creative arts. So a wide range of things. And Apple is going to develop a curriculum and provide mentorship and learning support. So that looked pretty good. And then they're also setting up an Apple Developer Academy. Let me say the words, that in Detroit, in an urban area in Detroit, primarily for inner city students, mostly minority students, to help teach coding and give them tech education. This is actually not the first developer academy that Apple set up. They actually set one up in Italy a number of years ago, which is interesting. And so the idea is just to create new Mac and iOS developers from these and give them opportunities to become, programmers and businessmen of themselves. And then a venture capital fund for minority entrepreneurs. So what do you guys think of this announcement?
Seems like a good idea. It's going to depend on how it's implemented. I kind of get skeptical with when big companies do stuff like this, that it's more just lip service than anything. But if they're going to help people get into STEM who otherwise might not have that opportunity, seems like a good idea.
Yeah, I like that they're putting their money where their mouth is. But honestly, especially watching all of the fallout from the social media stuff that's happened throughout this year, all of the things related to especially artificial intelligence and machine learning and the algorithms and how they are creating these filter bubbles for people. I think that their money would be better spent if they really focused on fixing that problem and on making that a central issue that they were going to move forward with. And that being said, I don't want them to take this money away from, developing this group of people that is traditionally wildly underrepresented in the tech community. But we really need to handle at a philosophical level the problems that have been coming to the forefront in machine learning and in algorithms and in the development of those things and how they have been serving, capitalist tendencies to a dangerous extreme. Because there's nothing wrong with making a buck, but there is something wrong with making a buck at the expense of all of these people that are being stuck into these filter bubbles and losing connection with the things that are happening to them.
I just want to offer a nuance on what you said. Instead of they would have been better spent, I would say, Apple, you've got plenty of money. So in addition to this money, I'd like you to see make a huge investment in that. So yeah,
exactly. That's a good way to put it.
I figured you'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Jack, what was it you wanted to add to that?
I was going to say, pretty much just that, like do this and then also do that other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's a lot of places Apple sees itself. One of the it kind of sees itself as we are a virtuous company, and whether or not that's true or not, whether that's even possible or not, they make the case that they're not just about the bottom line and self-serving, but they want to make a difference, make a change in the world. And whether you agree with their complete vision of what that means or not, that's the case they make. But if they want to make the world a better place, one of the areas they got to do is they got to rein in technology in these ways so that it's not harming us, even as we advance more and more and more forward. And their hardware and software is a part of that. A billion phones in your pockets, y'all, as Oprah
facial recognition software is definitely top of the list of one of the problems that we're having in that arena.
Right. Yeah. I was just seeing in Boston, they wanted this proposals to ban police use of facial recognition software because of its inherent biases against certain communities, certain ethnic backgrounds, especially Black and minority people because based on how we've talked about before, based on how it's been programmed and the models that it uses. So yeah, I agree. So from one giant computer company to another doing things, here's one that we're less excited about. Fitbit has been absorbed by the Google. We knew that this was coming. I mean, had been announced that they wanted to do this, but it's finalized now, and now the time has come. How do you feel about this? Do either of you guys own a Fitbit?
My wife uses one, so honestly, it's not something that really affects me. We both have iPhones, so I don't know if going forward, it's going to mean that Fitbit works better with the Android ecosystem. But I just, on principle, don't really like Google gobbling every single other company up.
Right. I have, philosophically, what Google tends to do with companies that it acquires is it acquires them and then neglects them and then changes them so that they're less good for, like Nest.
Yes.
They've gotten rid of APIs, or they create software that kills the market for that class of software and then kill the software. Google Reader. So yeah, Google has a tendency to be a bit of a bull in a china shop.
I can see where they're doing this though, because they currently don't in their portfolio have a competition for the Apple Health device, right? In the watch. But it just bothers me that it's like everything's kind of getting, we have maybe 5 companies that are going to be left in the world.
Right.
They're going to own everything.
Right. Yes, that is. I mean, the relevant authorities look at things. The EU, the Justice Department, they say, is it anti-competitive? And they say no. You wonder how independent those judgments are, whether they've been lobbied sufficiently, that sort of thing. But it is distressing when all of these. The problem isn't. Part of the problem is giant conglomerates getting even more gianter. But also the problem is just when you all are under the same umbrella, you lack diversity of thought and vision and innovation. Now you have Fitbit doesn't have Fitbit vision, which granted it hasn't been great vision. Some of it has had some innovation in recent years, but their initial innovation was its big splash. Give them that, but at least it's not like the Google vision. They had the Fitbit vision, and Nest had a Nest vision. And so you had these competing visions in the marketplace of ideas. You had these exchanges, and, Fitbit would come up with an idea and Apple would copy it, and then Google would copy that, and there was give and take. But if you have just one big company, I think there's less of that. And I think that harms all of us in the long run.
Yeah. And I feel like things are just getting more and more siloed into these big vertical integrations, and everything just becomes homogenous. Like if you're in the Apple ecosystem, you get the Apple Watch, you get the Mac, you get all that, and it's all kind of the same. And then on the other side, you have the Google ecosystem, and it's the same kind of thing, and there's no real choice. And
they don't really work outside of the silo. I mean, they make motions so that they can make the antitrust lawyers go away. Like you can get Apple Music on an Android phone or in Windows, but it isn't going to be as good as
the same.
Yeah. And vice versa. Yeah, and vice versa. So I agree. I love the fact that my Apple Watch works really well with my iPhone and really well with my phone looks really well with my Mac. But you're right. If I looked at the Google Pixel and said, "Wow, it's a really nice phone. I'd really love to get it." One of the big hang-ups for me is, but it doesn't work as well with my Mac as my iPhone does.
But see, the internet works on your computer, and it works on your computer very similar way that it works on my computer. And the entire design of the internet is that it's supposed to be open and usable by everyone.
That's not really how it is now, though. I'm even encountering that where I just recently switched from using a PC and having an iPhone to getting a Mac, and how easy it makes everything. I really see how you end up getting caught up in that ecosystem where everything is just that one thing. And it's nice, but you also everything ends up being kind of the same.
Mm-hmm. Well, and in fact, I've been a Brave user, the Brave browser user for a long time, which is a version of Chrome. But I keep finding myself pulled into Safari more and more because certain things work better in Safari. Yeah. Especially when I want to use, say, Apple Pay to buy stuff. It's so easy to do Apple Pay, and it's so secure, and it's like, so there's that siloing even in the internet. And like I said, certain sites. I use Hootsuite for our social media management for SQPN. Doesn't work very well in Safari. Works really well in Brave, and so I have to switch between them. And there is some concern about this movement to kind of silo. But as the good thing is right now we still have choices. I can still use Brave or Chrome or even Edge on my Mac if I want to. For now, right. We'll see how it goes.
I'm still waiting for my Linux phone, darn it. I want a Linux phone.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
It's still not out there.
I actually encountered this problem today when I was setting up a new computer at work. It had this thing that I'd not heard of before that's called Windows 10 S mode, where you're not allowed to install any applications on the computer other than what you can get directly from the Microsoft Store. So I had to go through, jump through a bunch of different hoops to uninstall the Windows 10 S mode just so I could install something that my company develops. And stuff like that is what I really don't like seeing, where you end up being forced to just get things through an app store, even though you're on a computer.
That's my big fear with the Mac, and that if Apple ever does that someday, I may just digital and go Linux, because I do not want to be. I do not want my experience to be like. I mean, it's okay on my iPhone. It's okay on my iPad. I want to have control of my Mac and be able to install whatever software I want without having the software to be able to fit within Apple's narrow guidelines of its App Store. There's stuff I would love to do on my iPhone or my iPad that I can't do because Apple won't let those apps in, especially as we've seen in the past week with certain social media networks that have been deplatformed by App Store rules and that sort of stuff. But if their servers were still running, you could have still accessed them through the web, because the web is an open service. That is concerning. The Mac does have a mode like that where you can only install stuff from the Mac App Store, but it's a flip of a switch. It's in system preferences in the security pane. As long as you know the admin password for the computer, type it in, hit the button, and now you can install, which I'm happy to see. But if I were to use the canonical my mom example, if I would give my mom a computer, I would flip that switch so she could only install stuff out of the Mac App Store.
Right.
All right. My mom still does manage to download stuff to her iPhone that she shouldn't. But that's a whole nother thing. All right. Those are some good headlines. Let's move on to our picks of the week. Jack, I'll let you go first with your first pick of the week. All
right. My pick of the week is a tip, and it's kind of a follow-on to what we started the podcast with talking about helping people with tech support. And I think what you should try to do if you tend to be the person like I am, who's the IT support for your family and your friends, is teach people how to troubleshoot their own tech problems and help them become aware of the solutions to fixing these problems, rather than just doing the easy fix, which I know for all of us, it's probably easiest to say, hey, you step back, let me do it, and you'll be good to go. It's a little bit more of a pain to set someone up with how to do that, but in the long run, they're going to be better off themselves, because then they can actually start thinking about, hey, how can I solve this problem, rather than just asking someone to fix it for me.
Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime and gets sick of fish.
Exactly.
Well, this was actually something I agree with that totally. I helped my brother become very much more savvy, and I don't hear from him very often anymore until he has really bad problems, at which point I go, you need to call Apple or something. But I agree with that. I wholeheartedly teach people how to help themselves, and they'll feel more accomplished, and they'll feel more comfortable with the technology. It'll stop being the magic box that does things I don't understand, and that's good for everyone.
Yeah, and when you're doing a fix, sometimes it's helpful to talk them through what you're doing too, just to say, okay, I'm going to try this, and say, I'm not sure if it's going to work, but I'm going to try this, and let them know that you're not going to break the whole computer by clicking on this button over here, right?
Right. And how to Google things, how to Google solutions. Man, is this not the hidden secret of most of us tech nerds?
Yes, it is.
We don't know all this stuff. We Google it. We just know how to find the stuff on,
just know the keywords. That's it.
Yeah. Right.
We know which websites to trust and which one are not going to give us the good answer. Right.
Exactly. That's the secret.
Yeah. Exactly.
Excellent tip, Thomas. What's your pick this week?
Okay, mine is a totally nerdy pick. My son is into chiptunes. Actually, most of my kids are into chiptunes. If you don't know what chiptunes are, it's old 8-bit sounding music. So music that you would have heard on like the Nintendo Entertainment System or the Super Nintendo. It's all designed with very specific sound wave patterns, because they couldn't. They had a sound chip that could only do certain sound wave patterns. And so if you listen to the old Mario music, for example, the music and the jump sounds were all integrated. They had to work together. So even if Mario jumped at an odd time, that's why sometimes you'll see Mario jump and then the jump sound will happen later than when he jumps, is because it had to fit in with the music. So there's a lot of rules to writing this music that's really bizarre, and people don't follow it necessarily. But if you want to sit down and try and write chip tune music, which is music that sounds very much like these old school music types, there's this program called Milky Tracker. And a tracker is what they would use to write this music. So they would use sine waves or sawtooth waves or square waves to make the instruments, quote unquote, that would go into these different music types, and then you would just write the music in kind of the way you would anyway, where you would just give it a letter, and it would be like writing notes on a sheet. There's a lot of great videos on YouTube on how to use it, but it's a free program. If you want to go check it out, you can download it. You can play around with it. You can make some fantastic tunes. He is one that sits down at the piano and plays out all of the tunes that he hears from like Zelda and all the different games that he plays. So I figured, okay, let's go the other way and let's get him actually writing some of his own music. And he's come up with some really great chip tunes that he's designed all on his own. He's learning a lot about music, and he's just playing with it, which is the best part. It's
awesome.
Fun to him.
Nice.
Sounds really fun.
Maybe have a future as a game soundtrack designer.
Exactly.
Good. All right. So mine is another tip this week from me this time. So my wife has had a long-term problem with her phone, her iPhone. We are on AT&T. I've been on AT&T for literally decades. And in fact, back when they were, what did they used to be? Singular. They were AT&T, then they were Singular, then they were AT&T again. I've lived through those corporate transitions. Anyway, it's not really here nor there. So my wife's had this problem on her phone where she gets spam texts to her phone. And these are gross, disgusting spam texts. Let me just put it that way. And we have not been able to stop them. Now, there's software out there that claims to do this. It was Malwarebytes and there's other apps that claim to be able to filter junk into a junk mail folder. But there's a problem because those only work for actual SMS. SMS is a short message system. Those are actual texts from a phone number or short number, the short codes. These are the ones she was getting were from email addresses. That's a very, it shouldn't, you think that shouldn't matter, but it's a very key distinction. So with the emails cannot be stopped by the normal method. And so the short form of this is, if you want to stop emails from being sent to your phone number, every cell phone number has a hidden email address associated with it. I think with Verizon, it's like your phone number at vtext.com or something along those lines. And there's a similar one for AT&T. Anyway, if you want to stop emails coming to your AT&T phone, you need to call the customer service, ask for advanced technical support. Like when the automated thing comes up and says, "What are you looking for?" Just keep saying advanced technical support over and over. That's what I did. It will route you to advanced technical support. Then when you get the person on the line, you tell them, "I want you to turn off the email to SMS gateway for this number." They'll know what that means. And they'll say, "Okay, sure." And they'll shut it off for that number. And now from that point on, you will not be able to get emails sent to that phone number. Now, if you're a Verizon customer, you don't have to do this. There's a switch in the Verizon preferences of your account. So if you go to Verizon, your account on Verizon, there's a one of the options is turn off emails to domain, from domains or from the web or something along those lines. I don't know the exact language, but it's something along those lines. So they actually let the customer do this themselves without having to call. I did it. I called. I was on hold for 15 minutes, talked to someone. They put me on hold a couple times and then came back and said, "Okay, it's all taken care of." My wife is so happy now because the problem is now here's I want to give a little fish shake at Apple because the notifications for messages should be more granular than it is. Which is, I should be able to say, just like I can with mail, only give me notifications of messages from people in my contacts or people I designate as VIP. Because it was all or nothing with messages. You either get all of your notifications on your lock screen or none. She didn't want these gross things being on her lock screen, so she was missing messages, important messages from family and friends. So that's one fish shake. And also, how about a basic spam filter, Apple? Like these were very clearly would have got caught by any spam filter. You give us a junk mail filter in the on the mail app. Do it for messages too. So that's my fish shake at Apple for falling down on this one. But if you are having this problem or you know someone who has this problem, this is the solution. Turn off the email to SMS gateway. That's it for me. So I think that should wrap it up for us this week. What did you think of our discussion? If you have any, like I said, if you have any more questions, specific questions about remote control apps, let us know. If you have any comments on any of the things we discussed otherwise, you can contact us at the show at sqpn.com/technology or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to technology@sqpn.com. And you can find links from our discussion and the headlines and the picks of the week on our show notes at sqpn.com. Remember, if you can, please, to like each episode of Secrets of Tech on Facebook, retweet them on Twitter, where we're at SQPN, and leave comments and reply to our tweets and that sort of thing on social media. That's another great way of contacting us. Until next time, Thomas Sanderho, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
It's been a pleasure.
Jack Barazini, thank you as well.
Thanks, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.